What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 12. We're on episode 12 now of the Inner Alchemy with Sandal Roy podcast. I'm your host, Sandal Roy, and we do have some new people here. So if you don't know me, I'm a quantum healer, and I do ascension updates and geopolitical updates and videos about healing, about divine union, about spiritual awakening. And today we are talking about MAGA going crazy, with Trump now declaring that there is no Epstein list. And of course, I'm really pleased about this because I've been trying to get people to wake up to the QAnon deception, the QAnon psyop for such a long time. Obviously, it gets really, really nuanced, okay, because QAnon was basically a psyop to hijack the awakening movement, okay? The awakening movement was going in a certain direction. People were waking up. They were getting organized. They were realizing that the people who were running things, who were selling us all these wars in the Middle East, were lying to us, and they were the same people that were trafficking children and lying to us, and that were involved in occult practices and satanic rituals with these children. And so everybody was kind of getting organized and waking up, and it was really I don't know, I guess it was a dark time. It was a dark night of the soul. And then that's when, I noticed that, all these psyops started happening. There was all the new age ascend to 5D stuff, which I definitely fell for. I'll be honest, I fell for all of that. And I do think that there's, I'll do more videos. I've spoken about it in previous videos, but I'll do more videos talking about that, because I do think that with all of these things, there's always some truth that they'll mix in, okay? We are ascending, okay? We're becoming awake in all dimensions, okay? Since I initiated in my work as an oracle, I'm able to access 5D, 6D, 7D, all the way up to, I think I've been able to access up to 13D in some of my sessions. So I'm not saying it's total bullshit that we ascend to 5D, okay? Like, some of us are actually ascending into, are operating, dropped my iPad. Some of us are operating more at a 5D level of consciousness. That doesn't mean that you're not still in the physical and that you can't see everything that's happening in, the third dimensions and things like that. That doesn't mean that there aren't wars happening that we will have to bear witness to. It just means that we will be operating at a higher level of love and of empathy and of unity consciousness. People who say that they're, you get a lot of new age teachers who say that I've shifted to 5D and I'm not paying attention to all those wars and all that shit. That's not 5D, babes. You're in dissociation, okay? Because if you don't have empathy towards your fellow humans that are suffering, that are being genocided, for example, then you're not in 5D. You're probably a spiritual narcissist, or you're going through some kind of weird dissociation where you can't handle what's happening on this planet, and you've become almost split, like with trauma-based mind control or MK Ultra. When you're forced to look at very traumatic things, it can kind of cause a kind of personality split or compartmentalization. And that's what's happening to a lot of us on this planet. I've even noticed it a little bit in myself because of all the horrible footage I've been seeing from Gaza. It's kind of cool. I can see that I'm almost compartmentalizing things a little bit. And I've also noticed memory issues as well. Dom has started to notice some memory issues as well. I used to have the best memory, and there are so many things that he said to me, like, oh yeah, we talked about that, I already told you. I'd be like, why didn't you tell me that we were doing this? And he's like, oh, I told you about it last week. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And he was like, I did, pretty sure, I remember, we were in the kitchen, you were wearing XYZ. And I'm like, wow, I do not remember that at all. It's not even like, oh yeah, like it slipped my mind. No recollection, okay? There are parts of I just blank certain things out, okay? And, you might be experiencing this. That's trauma, okay? That's what trauma does to you. So, yeah, with QAnon, it was obviously a psyop to hijack the awakening movement, just like the woke movement as well. Okay, so I was talking a lot about wokeism during COVID because the whole awakening movement and the intersectional and the feminist and all that, because being a conspiracy realist or being an awake person used to be considered quite a leftist. It was mostly aligned with leftist principles. It was anti-imperialist. A lot of the activists that I used to network with when I was involved with London We Are Change, talking about 9/11 truth, trying to wake people up to that, were anarchists, or they were anarchist socialist. A lot of them were squatters. They were the ones that actually started the Parliament Square, camping on Parliament Square, that then evolved into the Occupy London movement. Those were my friends who started that. I lost touch with a lot of them now because I kind of went down a different path, started focusing on my career and stuff. But, now I'm, more involved in groups like that. But, everybody was like, I don't want to say everybody was like hard left, because there's a lot of, I would say when you're a conspiracy realist, you're gonna question certain things. So, left, I kind of associate leftism with more government control. But it doesn't necessarily always have to be that way. It's about recognizing that there is a class divide to this. And people are now starting to realize that, okay, with MAGA, that it's like one rule for them, one rule for the elites, and another rule for the rest of us. And they had you convinced, the whole left-right paradigm had you convinced that if you align with the left, then you're going to be buying into all these broke mentalities and you'll never be rich like the elites. You'll never be rich like the elites anyway, unless you come from inherited wealth, because they've designed and set up the system in a way that funnels money from the bottom to the top through the system of fractional reserve banking and fiat currency in the Federal Reserve. And, thankfully, a lot of people in the MAGA camp do seem to understand that and do seem to be aware of that, which I would say a lot of leftists don't seem to understand, because obviously the leftists got more hijacked, because the left was gaining a lot of power back in like 2015, 2016, it started to become institutionalized, and you started getting all these corporations who started buying into, using leftist narratives to try and, as part of their brand identity, and started, bringing diversity into the workplace, and leftist culture started to become institutionalized. Okay, it wasn't real change. It wasn't real social change. Okay, certain things did slightly improve for a lot of people. I'm not denying that. However, at the same time, they bring in another psyop, QAnon, to basically turn the awakening movement into a partisan issue. So, I remember during COVID, there were some social justice warriors who literally started attacking anybody who was talking about child trafficking, and saying if you see any influencers who are talking about COVID and who are talking and the pandemic and trying to say that it's part of some conspiracy. Hey guys, this is editing Sandal. No, there was one term that they specifically used, which I forgot to say when I was filming this yesterday, and that was New Earth. Okay, that was the term. They were like, if you see any influencers using the term New Earth, they're basically propagating far-right QAnon conspiracy theories, and we should contact all their brands to make sure that they know that this person is far-right and is problematic, and hopefully will drop all their brand deals. Like, that's where they were going with this. That involves elites being, involved in human trafficking and child trafficking. That person is a far-right QAnon conspirator, and you should be contacting everybody who they do brand deals with and letting them know that they're promoting far-right conspiracy theories. And I'm so sorry to tell you, but that's not the case, okay? There is a conspiracy to harm children. I'm so glad that people are now starting to see this. Okay, with the Palestine movement, there's obviously a lot of left-leaning people in the Palestine movement. I wish that there were more, genuinely spiritual awake truth seekers in the Palestine movement. We do have some, but I don't know, I feel like a lot of the truth community, I've been extremely disappointed. Lots of my friends who are in the truth community and in the spiritual community are also telling me that they're absolutely disgusted by their people around them who just completely ignored a live stream genocide. And I think partly and largely that was because of, excuse me, I'm just dropping my crystals everywhere. That was largely because of QAnon and all these QAnon influencers just spreading the most ridiculous nonsense. Like, one of the things that I heard that somebody commented was that all the wars are fake. And they're just it's just all AI and deep fakes and just CGI just to get people to wake up. Have you any idea how much, like I just said in the beginning, how much MK Ultra and trauma-based mind control people who've been witnessing that have been put through? Like, do you really think that anybody orchestrated, if that were true, that they're putting fake atrocity videos out there to wake people up, that those people somehow have your best interests at heart? Somebody who's fragmenting your personality, who's giving you grey hairs, who's traumatizing you to the point where you can't sleep and you're having nightmares now. And secondly, I can tell you for a fact that it's not fake, because those of you who've been with me for a while know that I was speaking to people in Gaza every single day. I was verifying them. I was basically being like a one-person Project Watermelon or Operation Olive Branch. I was doing what they do, essentially, not with the, it wasn't a full, because I'm just one person, right? I didn't have a full database. But families in Gaza who were coming to me, asking me, because I had a following back then, this was before I got deplatformed, I had 35,000 followers, and they saw I was speaking for Palestine a lot. Mainly my whole feed had just been talking about Palestine. So they were asking me to promote their fundraisers. So I verified like as many as I could, not everybody, but it was like, dozens of people a day. And I would ask them to send me a video showing that they are in Gaza with all the rubble, destroyed homes around them. And they would have to say a particular phrase that said with my name included in it. Okay, that's, if you think that would have to be some seriously sophisticated, I don't know, like, how people can believe this stuff. Okay, like, it's crazy to me that you'll believe in things like Italian food gate. You'll believe that there's trafficking rings and that there's elites doing trafficking, and that there have been wars and genocides throughout history: Cambodia, Rwanda, Tigray that's happening right now, Congo that's happening right now, Sudan that's happening right now, but yet you think that the live stream genocide is fake, even though we know that Palestine has been brutally occupied by Israel for 76 years. Somehow what they're doing now is fake, even though they've done like previous mowing the lawn episodes like every few years. And we've heard from their own mouths, Israeli people from their own mouths make genocidal statements and hold clifftop parties where they watch Gaza being bombed. Like, wake up. Like, these people are under, I would say that a lot of the QAnon followers are like under some kind of like psychosis almost. The stuff that they believe, like, I do sometimes dip in and out listening to some of the spiritual influences that I used to listen to that have gone down the QAnon path, just to see what they're feeding people with. And some of the things that I've heard are that there's 3 Elon Musks and 3 Donald Trumps, 3 different versions in different clone bodies, and one of them is good and then there's 2 evil ones. So all the evil things that they do and that they say are the evil clones, but the good one is trying to take out the deep state and is trying to save the children from the underground tunnels. And I'm just like, look, I'm not disputing that cloning technology exists, okay? We know cloning technology exists. They cloned a sheep back in the 90s. I'm sure they can clone humans. I've spoken about this before. I spoke about it in the video on the Queen's reptilian genetics and the Queen's death. I'll link that here or in the description. I've spoken about cloning technology, okay? I don't consider it outside of the realm of possibility that presidents and billionaires might have clones. But to have like 2 different evil clones and they don't have some kind of way of vetting to make sure that this clone isn't running rampant pretending to be them. So their clone just has access to their X account or their Instagram account. Their clone just has access to the White House and their houses. Like, how is that? Do you not have like some kind of security system or something that you know, like a password or a passcode that can keep the evil clone out? Like, it makes no sense, okay? And it's just ludicrous. Obviously people that followed Trump and followed MAGA and thought that Donald Trump was going to save the kids, even though this is just so ridiculously stupid, that a man who has, by his own admission, has admitted to sexually assaulting women, who has admitted to walking in on teenage girls during the Miss Universe pageant, himself admitted this, didn't think there was anything wrong with this, who's even like had his daughter mock him for being a sexual predator. I'll see if I can get the clip for that and insert that.
You know about sexual predators and things like that. I mean,
you are one.
All right, I was going to say that, but it's true.
And himself acknowledged that it's true and we're laughing along, oh yes, I'm a sexual predator. You know, I get that, you know, we've been living through different times, okay? The noughties was a very toxic time in which misogyny was very normalized. Not saying that misogyny is not still normalized. It is, let's be real. But being a predator and a creep was totally normalized and considered cool and acceptable. I worked as a model for 20 years, okay? I still do work as a model. And I'm telling you that there were many times when I was on set where there was just some creep who just didn't think that there was anything wrong with being a creep and just making sexual comments and being a fucking creep, okay? And I was a grown woman, so I can't even imagine what it must have been like for teenage models. There's a model who she's recently switched from, her name's Leanne Maskell. She wrote a book called The Model Manifesto, in which she called out the industry for loads and loads of toxic, unhealthy behaviours. And she's now actually signed with my agency in London, because my agency in London is awesome. Like, they don't participate in any of this bullshit, okay? They're just a good agency that just gets you work, doesn't get involved in any other drama. They've never told me that I need to lose weight or anything like that. Is Body London. And so Leanne Maskell is now signed with us. I think Gemma just had her on the podcast. And in her book, The Model Manifesto, she was talking about how when she started modeling, she would be booked on runway shows and she would be underage, okay? This was before they brought in laws to protect underage models and ban underage models. I think for 16 and over only could do runway shows, but that was brought in, I think, after the 2 Brazilian models died in the 2010s. They died of anorexia, so they started bringing on all these much stricter regulations. And then we had Me Too, which was very transformative from the industry, okay? As an industry insider, I will say Me Too was wonderful for the industry. Our industry became so much nicer and so much more hospitable place and so much less misogynistic and less exploitative and less abusive place for us to work. So she would be like doing like runway shows at like 13, 14. And she said that as soon as the models would start disrobing to get changed, you have a lot of people backstage, okay? They don't protect your dignity in the West. This is different in Asia. In Asia, they're very strict. When I've done like Fashion Week in Pakistan, they're very strict about not allowing men in the changing rooms unless, you know, all the models are not there at the time. But that's not the same modeling in the West. Like in the West, your models will be getting changed, they'll be getting, you know, naked and whatever, and all manner of dudes who photographers, male models, sound guys, lighting guys are allowed backstage. And back then they would also have photographers backstage who would be taking pictures of the models getting ready and stuff like that. Sometimes they still have that, but they're a little bit stricter now about when those photographers are allowed backstage. But as soon as the girls would be taking their clothes off, the photographers would start, you know, taking pictures of them undressing, which is extremely fucked up because these girls are children, basically. Some of them are like 13, 14. So obviously with the whole Epstein thing, there's a lot of model agencies that were implicated. MC2 in New York and Karine Models in Paris. So I've never been signed with either of those two agencies, thank God. But in my time, I have seen some problematic things in the industry, okay? I have seen literally trafficking of models. I've seen agencies that were basically fronts for escort agencies with the girls not even knowing that that was the case and not knowing that that was what they were there for, and being manipulated and drugged into that, okay? I'm not going to name which agencies they were, but if you are in the industry and you want to know which agencies to avoid, you can contact me personally and I'll let you know what those agencies were, okay? I'm just not, like, the people that are involved with those agencies are dangerous, so I don't want to be, you know, attracting too much negative attention towards myself. But yeah, that, I'm not saying that that's the entire industry. That's obviously like an aberration. It's not the norm, but it does happen, okay? It wasn't unheard of. So yeah, those two agencies, I think, were owned by the same guy. Let me just look up what his name was. Okay, yes, it was Jean-Luc Brunel. And if you look up this guy on YouTube, okay, there will be lots and lots of models giving their testimony of how they were experienced horrific instances of sexual assault or sexual misconduct or sexual harassment or even rape from this person. And he was also mysteriously suicided from a jail cell, very similar to Epstein, okay? Because it's highly possible that some of these girls were being trafficked as well. Now, high-level escorting is something that does happen in the model industry, okay? It's not very commonly talked about because the girls that do it obviously don't want to tarnish their reputation by admitting that they do this kind of work. For the record, I've never done this work, okay? But I was scouted by, I think his name's Danny Edward. There's been a Channel 4 documentary about this guy, okay? And he will basically friend all the girls in the industry and ask them if they want to go for dinner and get paid £500 or so, however much pounds, to go for dinner with some rich dude or do trips. And then they're offered a higher price for extras, okay? So a lot of girls are not going to admit that they do this. A lot of the girls that you follow on Instagram who are doing all these trips everywhere, yeah, some of it is just part of the job, you know, it's part of our job to travel and go on stay and try and work in different markets. But if they're posting a lot of like luxury trips, it's very possible that they're doing either just image work, which is where you get paid to party and accompany rich men, or image plus extras. And it is not safe. It is 100% not safe work, okay? I do know of one or two girls that did it and came off well from it and had a positive experience. But I've also heard of girls going on these trips and then never being heard from again and never being seen again. So I don't recommend, if you're in the model industry, I don't recommend that you do any of this type of work, okay? Just do normal modeling that comes through your agency, just legit stuff. If anybody makes you feel uncomfortable, have your booker, call your booker immediately and tell them what's happened, and they should protect your interests, okay? If somebody's being weird or creepy on set, you should have a good enough relationship with your bookers to be able to say, okay, I once had it where a photographer was being extremely fucking creepy and saying the most inappropriate things, and I called my agent and literally started crying as soon as she picked up the phone, told her what happened, and she told me to get my stuff and get off set. And, you know, I wasn't being paid very much to be on this job. So, you know, I kind of did need the money. And I was just like, are you sure? And she's just like, don't worry, I will make sure that you get paid. He cannot talk to you like that. He cannot say those things. Get your stuff and go immediately. So that was awesome. That was Sandra Reynolds. They're a nice little commercial agency who serve the London market. I actually haven't spoken to them in a long time. I don't know if they even know I'm in the UK. But yeah, really nice agency. I've also had other experiences where I didn't feel confident to tell my agent what was happening, and I put up with bullshit. Okay, so don't do that. You know, I wish I hadn't. You know, I look back at certain experiences and I'm like, oh, that was horrible experience. I wish I could have just called my agent and been like, this client's being really fucking creepy. But yeah, anyway. Back to talking about Trump, because this is obviously way more, the whole MAGA QAnon thing is obviously dealing with way worse things than just models, you know, being creeped on or being groped on set. Okay, we're talking about children being trafficked for satanic rituals. Okay, which does happen. Please look up the testimony of Annika Lucas. This stuff is real. Okay, I've been talking about it for years. Now, I just find it so, look, I get that when you find out about this stuff, it's so horrific that it puts you into a dark night of the soul where you're just like, who is going to stop this? Like, who is going to take this on? Like, these people are so evil. Anybody who tries to go up against them is obviously like going to put themselves at risk. And if they're, you know, all the victims basically say that the perpetrators are judges, that they're police, that they're doctors, that they are your news anchors, okay, your journalists, that they are like literally your alphabet agencies, like your pharmaceutical companies, your military generals, your politicians, the people you vote for and you pay your taxes to are all implicated in this. Okay, once you realize that, you're just like, shit, we're all enslaved. We're so fucking cooked. So then in comes Donald Trump on his white horse, and people are like, oh my God, yes, it's a military operation. They're going to save us. I get how people fell for it. But if you've looked at Donald Trump's rap sheet, how are you going to think that the fucking pedophile rapist is going to save you? Look, I'm going to play this video of Dom talking. Okay, when we went to the Fauci protest in Sarasota, there were a lot of QAnon people there, okay? And it's also Dom's mission to try and wake people up to the Trump deception, okay? Because Trump, a lot of the QAnon people obviously could see through all the COVID bullshit. They could see that the psyop there, or the false mandates were. So how they have fallen for Trump, who was the self-confessed father of the vaccine, okay? It was Operation Warp Speed, okay? If you heard him talking about the things that he was able to get the FDA to do so that he could bring that vaccine out when he did, bring that jab out when he did, you're not paying attention. But the people will delude themselves with all kinds of things. And look, a lot of it is these influencers, these spiritual influencers, who I reckon are deep state assets, okay? They're CIA or something, okay? Or they're part of these satanic cults, and they've been put there specifically to mislead you, okay? A lot of people who I thought were trustworthy, I'm now realizing are part of this network, okay, and part of this club, which is really scary to think about, but it's something that we all have to start to realize. And they'll put it right in your face as well. Like, you can just literally like run their names through a gematria calculator and see a lot of it, which is why it's probably why they're all so obsessed with gematria as well. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so I'm gonna play this video. So Dom had a sign talking about how, you know, millions were killed by Trump and Fauci, And obviously it triggered a lot of people there because there were a lot of Trump supporters there. There was one guy who approached us and was very curious and was actually very, very nice and polite. He described himself as a Christian evangelical, which is, not a religion I agree with, because it's basically the Christian Zionists are, evangelicals. They're supporting the genocide, okay? They're not seeing... Obviously, they have their weird agenda and whatever they're taught by their religion. I've spoken about in previous videos that evangelical Christianity was literally created by a Satanist. I linked that in a previous video. I will try and find the link for that and put it in the description for this video, because I know some people had some problems finding it, and I have a lot of videos, so I'll make that easier for you so you can look that up yourself. But if they saw the whole messianic plan and how basically the jab is going to be the mark of the beast, that it all connects, like all the patent technology that's in the jab. Okay, I just lost 15 minutes of footage, which always happens when I'm talking about stuff that demons don't like me to talk about, so they hijack my technology. So never mind, we'll just try and remember what we talked about. So all the patents in the jabs are basically owned by Israeli tech companies. So I don't understand how Q people cannot see that many of them are anti-Zionist as well. Like, so many of them that I've heard from don't support Israel. They don't like, because they're MAGA, right? So they're America first. So they obviously see, I mean, some of them, okay, it's true. Some of them are like all crazy Christian Zionist evangelicals who think that, yes, we must bless Israel so that we be blessed, because these are the God's chosen people, but Jesus is going to unalive them all in the end times, but they all need to go to Israel so that we can bring the Messiah. Messianic Christianity, basically. Okay, sorry, this video might be a little bit disjointed as I remembered things that I forgot to mention, including very important things like the video that I was just talking about, of me and Dom at the Fauci protest. Sorry, let me just find it. Yeah, you might notice Dom is here. He just called me. And I'm going to bring him in at the end once I've said all the things I need to say, because he's got a few things he wants to say too. So if I didn't already say this, at the protest, Dom obviously included, millions killed by Trump and Fauci, which obviously triggered a lot of people, because there were a lot of QAnon supporters there and Trumpists and MAGA people. But there was one guy who approached us, and, he was pretty respectful, pretty curious. And so Dom just basically started outlining Trump's rap sheet.
He was like a campaign manager for Trump.
Yeah, I was going to say that, baby. Don't worry, I'll say it. Yeah, so this is the video.
Inbred pedophiles. He openly said on a talk show he would marry his own daughter if she wasn't his. Or it wasn't his. Let's see what else we got. Finding that pedophile case.
All this time, doctors were telling me.
What?
10 years old, Michael Parker, 10 years old, oral rape, Mar-a-Lago, Palm Beach, Florida, 1992. Trump paid his parents $3 million settlement to shut up. Kelly Fuhrer, 12 years old, $1 million settlement paid in 1989. Allegation for forced intercourse at the Trump Tower, New York, New York. Charles Bacon, 11 years old, $3 million allegations of oral and anal intercourse, 1994, Trump Tower, New York, New York. Rebecca Conway, 13 years old, intercourse and oral sex, Trump Vineyard Estates, Charlottesville, Virginia, 2012, $5 million settlement. Mariah Oliver, 12 years old, her family was paid $16 million settlement allegations for forcible intercourse.
Okay, so that was all I was able to record from my stories, but It's a pretty bad rap sheet. I apologize for the background noise there. But yeah, that guy was actually, as Dom kind of piped in just a second ago, that guy was actually a former Trump staffer. He was actually on Trump's 2016 campaign for his last presidency. So and he had his own podcast. He was a Christian evangelical, which I've spoken about in previous videos. I do not agree with Christian evangelicalism. That's basically like the root of Christian Zionism. The Christian evangelical Bible was literally created by a Satanist. I've spoken about this in previous videos. I will try and find the link to the video of the creator that outlined that and detailed that and put it in the description. But yeah, it's just, you know, he had his own podcast. So hopefully we were able to wake him up, so that he can then go look into that and wake up his audience, so that we can like rescue more and more people from the whole QAnon deception, because the whole point of it was to hijack the awakening movement. People were getting organized both on the left and the right of the political spectrum, because they were realizing that we were basically being controlled by an oligarchy of evil Satanists. And I don't know how people were, you know, was so dumb to think that the government was going to investigate themselves, or anybody running for government was going to be able to investigate the other members of the government and dismantle itself. Or like how you expect the elites to investigate themselves, you know, like it's not going to happen. It has to be us. It has to be all of us getting organised and working together. Like when Dom was here in London, obviously he's back in Sarasota now. That's why he just lives through that little screen. We went to an amazing Palestine protest that was on Keir Starmer's turf. It was basically to call out Keir Starmer's complicity in the genocide, and the fact since Keir Starmer came into office, they've supplied way more weapons. Like, how many times did they say? Do you remember, babe? How many more times of weapons that they've supplied? How many more weapons the Labour government have supplied to Israel than the Conservative government? You might not. I think they said it was. I think the speech that she gave, it was like at least 5 times more. But I'll have to refer back to the speech. But those speeches were amazing, and we filmed all of them. Dom went live, so it is on my Instagram already if you want to watch all the speeches together. I did film them one by one, so I'll try and clip them into shorter videos so that you can watch them. There were some amazing people getting organised. There was a guy, a geography teacher, who was working with his trade union, not just to organise for their own workers' rights, but also to build solidarity with people in Gaza, and how to, you know, just organise against a government that's complicit in genocide, and use their role as teachers to try and educate the children, because obviously, you know, the school system is used to indoctrinate kids as well. Like, we weren't taught about the occupation of Palestine. We weren't even taught about any other genocides other than the Holocaust. We were taught about the Holocaust like practically, like, I think 3 or 4 different times throughout the school system. We're never taught about the Congolese genocide. We're never taught about the Bengal famine. We were never told anything about Ireland, ever. We're never taught about the genocide of Native American people, the Australian Aboriginals. We were not taught about the Khmer Rouge. We were not taught about Rwanda. We were told about the Holocaust and told never again. And told, you're being told this so that you can make sure that this never happens again. And we weren't even told that it happened multiple times again. Like, what the fuck is up with that? Hey guys, this is Editing Sandal again, and this is a YouTube exclusive that I'm adding here. This bit is not on the Patreon version, but I just remembered something that I forgot to add. This is why I really need to write notes before I do these transmissions. So interestingly enough, talking about the school system, so Robert Maxwell, who was Ghislaine Maxwell's father, he was a Mossad operative, and he was also a paedophile, or exposed as a paedophile, I think, after his death.
he had a publishing company that would publish textbooks for school children for the US and the UK. So yeah, that's an interesting tidbit there that might explain why our school system is more like an indoctrination system.
So there were healthcare workers there who were basically organising and showing solidarity with health workers in Gaza, which for me, definitely, like, the health workers in Gaza have helped to heal some of my medical trauma. I had a lot of anger and fear and even like hatred towards mainstream medical doctors because of the trauma that I've suffered at their hands, which I've talked about in previous videos. And seeing how impassioned this one particular health worker was about the deliberate targeting of healthcare workers in occupied Palestine and in the Gaza Strip by the Zionist entity was powerful, because obviously those healthcare workers are being deliberately targeted because they keep people alive. So they're being targeted so that they can genocide people more quickly, right? So the only way that we're going to fight these monsters is by organizing. Like, I don't know how people thought that a president that is arming and funding Israel during not just the first ever live stream genocide, but what's literally being described as a war on children. Okay, there have been more children that have been, we've literally watched the videos of them being ripped apart by bombs. Like, how do people think that this guy who's arming and funding Israel and who has hosted Netanyahu more times than any other president, and is literally, rabbis are calling him the Messiah, and he has his name, his face, what was the coin with the menorah?
Oh, it was a commemoration coin of Israel. It's like a 70-year coin or something.
Yeah, did you hear that? A commemoration coin of Israel. I don't know if you can hear that all the way back. A 70-year coin to commemorate Israel with Donald Trump's face on it. He's literally their Moshiach that's going to help them build the third temple. How do any of you think that this person cares about children? He's here to save children. Like, I just don't understand how anyone can believe that. So, yeah. Was there anything else that I wanted to say? Yeah, so it is going to take us just organising in your local community, get people together. And for people who are saying, I'm too busy, I'm working 3 jobs, I've got bills to pay. Like, if you have any time for a social life whatsoever, start aligning your social life with community building and activism. Because that's what time it is. Like, we're literally living under tyranny now, and we need to start getting organised. And it is going to take people organising together and physically congregating in their communities and deciding and organising and planning what to do about this. Don't think it's going to be happening in online spaces so much, because these are all being tracked and traced now. So yeah, Dom has a few things that he wants to say, so I'm going to switch the devices around and bring him on and screen record. Hey baby.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so guys, so Dom had quite a few things that he wanted to add for this week's episode. So I know you've got your notes there, baby, so I'll just let you have the floor.
Yeah, just a few tidbits. You did some... first I wanted to touch on when you were telling everybody about all the other genocides that they don't teach you in school. I think one of the worst ones probably is the communist Bolsheviks genocide, where they killed like 60 million Russians in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And mostly Christians.
Yeah.
60 million mostly Christians and Muslims.
Because it challenges the narrative. Obviously, we know the Bolsheviks were Jewish, so...
Exactly. Also, I heard you mention to me a while ago that I think you said the Q-tards were being fed this bullshit that the Freemasons are somehow going to war with the Jesuits now. I'm like...
Yeah.
It's like... How can they be buying that when it's like... the Jesuits created Masonry in the first place.
Yeah.
And Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati in I don't know, 1776 on May 1st. And the Society of Jesus literally is the Jesuit Freemasons that run the world out of the Roman Catholic Church. Like, they're still running shit to this day. And they use the origins of Jewish mysticism straight from the Kabbalah that stated God made the world with words, right? And that's why they use gematria, which is their, again, Jewish mysticism practice of coding numbers into words with meaningful values and stuff. And that's how they script their reality. You know, they just orchestrate all their agendas and all these false flag attacks, and they start wars and stuff on these certain dates that they scripted long ago.
Yeah.
And this goes back to like the ancient Sumerian gods and stuff. Yeah, and before the Jesuits, you had the Knights Templar, which was the military order of the Catholic Church. And then they became the Knights of Malta later on, was another military order of the Catholic Church. And then the Jesuits are the military order, the current military order of the Catholic Church, with the same Templar cross in their logo.
Yeah, I did talk about the Knights Templar earlier. Yeah, so you weren't here for that. So I don't know if we've actually talked about it before, but according to my research, the Knights Templar basically came out of the Order of Melchizedek. So the Emerald Order and the Blue Flame Melchizedeks, who were they were basically protecting the original Hieros Gamos teachings, the mystery school teachings, and then they evolved into the Knights Templar. But I'm feeling some distortion. Like, I feel like they got infiltrated, and then I don't know if the Knights Templar were good or not. I'm sensing that there was some period where they were maybe good, but I don't know. Maybe you know more about that with your research. What does your research tell you about that?
Not entirely sure, honestly, but
yeah.
All I know is that the Jesuits have basically ruled for the last 5,000 years. It's just so easy to see who's still ruling and controlling us. Like, think about it. Like, we're all synced up to the false Gregorian calendar, right? Which is accredited to who? The Pope.
Yeah.
We're all using the majority of the world's using English language, which is also accredited to the Pope. And it's a limited language, too. Like, we don't say all the different sounds that our vocal range has, you know, and it's like limiting, because some of these tones and frequencies that people can emit are healing frequencies.
Yeah.
And so, like, when they make a language that's completely leaving those tones out, you know, you're basically limiting people's power.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of tones they left out?
I'm not entirely sure, but and it's funny too. There was a guy I was following who was looking into what the original human language was, because, like, you know, animals are all born knowing how to communicate with their families and stuff. They don't have to go to school and learn English or Chinese. And so it's like, why are we learning this? And what do babies come out? Human babies come out speaking.
Yeah.
What he was looking into is like this ancient paleo form of like Hebrew or something, honestly, where the, I forget, it was the vowels or the consonants, something basically sounded like ma, da, ba, pa.
I think it was light
like
language. Yeah. I reckon it was some kind of like vibrational tones that was spoken, like it was light language. I feel like it was, and it was like the transmission was telepathic. That's what my research has told me anyway, and what my intuition says as well, that we were probably speaking just tonal vibrational sound frequencies that we could telepathically understand when we communicated with each other. And then they brought in this more structured language that you had to learn, so it suppressed the right brain. Made us all like very left brain dominant or logical and like less intuitive. And I think that's why, you know, they've been suppressing the feminine frequency on this planet for such a long time. So people can't access that higher mind, that intuition. They're not merging the two brain hemispheres properly.
Yeah, I think we need to study babies closer and try and learn our original human language again.
Yeah.
And but like, because imagine, like, you're a baby trying to communicate to your mom and your dad what your needs are. Like, you're born like smart, you know what you need, and your parents have no way to understand you. So then, what else can you do but like cry when you're not getting your needs met, what you really want?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to
How sad is that?
when we have our own. We'll have to start like trying to telepathically communicate.
Documenting this, yeah.
Huh?
I'm gonna be like documenting everything he says, or he or she says, you know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. What else? Yeah, so we got the English language, we got the calendar, and they know what the real calendar is and how it goes, how there's 13 months and everything, and there's 28 days lunar cycles, and the cycle of the moon is synced up to 19-year cycles. That one's synced up to the Gregorian calendar that way, though. I don't know. But yeah, it's easy to see who's fucking with us and steering us down the wrong path. That's really all I had.
Okay. That's fine. That was really, really valuable. Thank you so much, baby. You always have really, really good insights to add.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so
Happy to help.
Sorry?
Happy to help.
Yeah, okay. So I'll cut back to my outro, guys. And thanks for joining us, baby. And then you've got the Messianic Jews who, Chabad Lubavitch. How people cannot see that Donald Trump is basically the Moshiach of the Messianic Jews. Now, obviously, I understand that Messianic Judaism is not the same as real Judaism, which is why so many Orthodox Jews are calling it out and making a distinction and saying this is not what our religion teaches. We don't agree with this. This is not how you bring about the end times. You don't kill, you don't steal, you don't do genocide, you don't do military occupation. And yes, I have some reservations about the things that are written in the Talmud. I have massive reservations about things that are written in the Bible. I don't agree with organized religion. I do believe in God. I am in full submission to Creator. I do think there's also some beautiful things in religion, in all of the religions actually, in Judaism, in Islam, in Christianity, in Hinduism. I love Jesus, a yogi. Yeah. But, at the same time, I have so much enormous respect for the Orthodox Jews that we see at every pro-Palestine march who are calling out the occupation and the land theft and the genocide that is happening in Palestine and who are free Palestine. So, yeah, all my love and respect to them. So I was looking at what various QAnon people were saying about this to try and explain why he's now saying that there's no list and maybe we'll give Ghislaine a pardon. Or Ghislaine herself, Ghislaine Maxwell, is now saying that she wants a pardon and she wants a retrial because she's like, if there's no client list, then who was I trafficking people to? Yeah, it's getting interesting. So what have they been saying? I think the main thing that they've been saying is that there's not the evidence. They don't have the full evidence of the list. That's what some people are saying. And then I've also heard that there is a list, but they're keeping it stum. They're keeping it to themselves because they're using it as blackmail or as leverage over certain world leaders. Obviously, the implications of revealing it right now, while there's several different, there's, the war in Ukraine, there's a genocide in Gaza, and, the expansion of the Greater Israel Project. There's obviously issues with India and Pakistan that they're trying to bring into all of this, and various geopolitical restructurings that are happening with BRICS and things like that. So apparently he's using it to get political leverage over his enemies, being like, hey, if you don't do what I tell you, then I'm going to release the list. But you need to release the list anyway. Like, if you have the list, that's what the people who voted you in agreed that you would do. So I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see which way that this goes. But I'm glad that so many people are now waking up and realizing that he's not here protecting your interests. He's not protecting the interests of the American people. The whole entity of the United States anyway is just, just the way that there's so much bad karma surrounding that entity in the first place that I think if Americans want to see their country fixed, whatever that means, as if it was ever fixed, or as if it was ever a good place to be. I don't know, maybe it was at one time, I'm not from there, but there needs to be a karmic rebalancing. Like, you need to start making peace with the indigenous people that you stole land from, not calling them all illegals and putting them in detention facilities or sending them off to maximum security prisons which they'll never get out of. Okay, these aren't illegals, these are indigenous. Okay, let me find a map, okay, of Mexico in the 1700s. Okay, y'all need to understand the history of your country, okay, because the people that you're calling Latinos or Hispanics, or that you think come from Mexico, this was Mexico, okay, in the 1700s under Spanish colonial rule. The term Latino or Hispanic is it's a Spanish colonial term designed to erase the indigenous identity of the people from the various different tribes and nations that were part of Mexico, or what is now Mexico. But obviously under Spanish colonial rule, Mexico was much bigger, included Florida and all the way up to Canada. So these people are actually indigenous. These are Native American people that you're throwing in camps and, internment, basically like internment camps, okay, concentration camps. It's messed up. I want to also include a little short story that I shared on my Instagram stories for the MAGA crew who are like, oh, they need to come here legally. And he explains what happens for the people that come here legally, that this is the current process. I'm not saying that it was always the process, but this is the current process.
Why don't they come here legally? I'm a civil rights lawyer, and here's the hell that happens to you if you come to the US legally. I met a refugee in immigration detention recently who followed all of the rules. He signed up for his CBP-1 appointment, which is the system set up by the US government for people to come here legally. The border gave him a time and place to come to the border. He was interviewed by a border official who determined his fear of going back to his home country was credible. And then he was locked up in an immigration detention center. To see him, I had to pass through 7 layers of barbed wires and gates. In the criminal world, we give people bond options. Basically, you pay money so you can be free until you have to return to court. If you were texting and driving, the bond might be only a few $1,000s. If you committed armed robbery, the bond would be a lot higher. The people who came here legally, they are never eligible for bond, which means every single one of them are locked up for the crime of following the rules. The real reason they're locked up is because these detention centers are run by private for-profit prison companies who charge American taxpayers $120,000 for every immigrant detained. They also make these immigrants work for $1 a day. These companies then donate a portion of their profits back to Trump and then rinse and repeat. Our entire immigration system is built on corruption and slavery, and the sooner it falls, the better.
So you've heard from that. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. I can't remember what I said in that 15 minutes where I lost the footage. If it's super important, then I'll include it in another video. I just want to, the next episode, I would like to go back to talking about nicer things. I want to talk about some divine union stuff, maybe some polarity stuff. I've got a whole list of really good videos talking about healing technologies and things like that. So I'd like to go back to that kind of stuff as well. But I do consider commenting on the geopolitical things to be important. It's very important for just our collective awakenings. And if you do enjoy these types of transmissions, please consider donating to my Patreon, or you can join my Patreon. I have 2 membership tiers. One of them will give you access to full-length, unedited podcasts. There are certain things that I talk about in these podcasts that need to be edited down so that they are more family friendly for YouTube, but those are hosted on Patreon. So if you want to get access to those, then you can get access to those. And there's a slightly higher tier where we'll be having some conversations and some live chats once there are enough people in there. I would recommend you join the middle tier, the lower tier for the time being, and then once we have enough people, then I would invite you to basically upgrade to the higher tier, and then we can do some live chats and some Q&As and things like that in there. Or if you want to support my work which I invite you to do because these do take a lot of time to research and everything. You can just donate for like $3 or £3. Is it $3 or £3? I can't remember. A month, or any amount that you can afford. So yeah, thank you very much. And if you want to book sessions, there's a link to book sessions in the description. If you want to sign up for my self-paced trauma healing course, Reclaim Your Crown, there's a link for that as well in the description. Okay, thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.